Heat is so like I said, I'm a '90s kid, right? And Heat was, and don't quote me on the date that it came out, but I'm gonna say like a '90s action movie. And the cast was bananas, right? You had like Pacino and De Niro and Kilmer, and there's some scenes in there that are wildly, I would say, not underrated because they still get talked about, but I don't think enough. And Heat specifically is, I think, flies under the radar for whatever reason. And even like the movies that Val has done, like obviously Tombstone, that's a hitter for me. Like I like that Doc Holliday character that he did was just fucking incredible. And there's other movies that I also love, obviously like Top Gun. That's just right around the corner. The second one, right, that's coming out. That's awesome. But Heat, it's like I feel like that one gets passed up, and I'm like, there's this scene in Heat. I mean, there's multiple amazing scenes, but there's this one where it's it's like very visceral when um people like so they're attempting to heist, right? There's a heist that's happening and there's cops. That's the beauty of this is there's like cops trying to stop the heist and they have a battle in the streets. And so they're using these what sound like giant ass battle rifles, which I think I looked them up because when I did this piece, I wanted to know what type of rifle it was, and it's like um, a smaller rifle than I thought it would be, but it's got some boom to it. So you just hear, someone and like the first shot, and you just see people like out of cars, like dun, 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 and like a fully automatic slash, even if you're just like single shotting these giant rifles in an open street, and the sound that was coming off of that, it's so insane. It's the way that they shot it too. It's stuck in my head, that scene and the feeling of like, oh shit, like it's going down. And I mean, that was just and you're like, oh my god. And I don't know. There's something about that. I think that you know movies hit that for whatever reason the director is just off the fucking charts, or cinematographer, sound design, everything comes together perfectly and it works out. That was a scene that I was like, holy shit, even though that whole movie's awesome, that I was like, I want to immortalize that. So I literally found that exact scene, right? And I'm like, I'm going to make a painting of that exact moment in that scene. So that's what I did, and painted it. And so my painting style, I a lot of times merge a couple mediums. So it's digitally, right? Like it's mostly like oil paint, um, like that's the digital brush. So you're laying um, paint down, and it really comes pretty close to actual painting. You could certainly make the argument that it will never compare to physical painting because it's like a tangible thing versus like a plastic pen on a glass screen. So, but you get the hang of it, and that painting it, the actual painting of it, and then I add kind of this like watercolor kind of splatter chaos over it to add more of a um, I don't know, I guess uncontrolled. I don't want it to be too polished. I want it to have an expressive nature, and that scene is very kind of like in your face and right, gritty and explosive. And then I also just visually like the idea of, I like black and white a lot, but I wanted a little pinch of color. So there's just a light splash of red, which obviously alludes to bloodshed, because that's what's going to happen when you're shooting battle rifles in the middle of the fucking street and you're stealing money. But anyways, that's the road I went down, and I think it's pretty fucking dope, and I'd be happy to own that and even hang that in my home. And that's always the end of the line. Like when I know it's finished, the piece is finished, is where I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, fuck yeah. And then I go to sleep, and then I wake up and I look at it again, because your brain is different from like freshly in that zone. Sometimes things look super dope where the next day they don't, but sometimes it's the opposite, where you're like, you can find all the little things in the zone that you might not be able to find the next day. And to get back there, you need another 5 hours to get to that place. So anyways, called it and finished it that night, and then the next morning was like, "Yeah, this is dope." And so, I'm sure I use that word dope way too much, but whatever. That's like, this is cool. This is perfect. This is what I wanted in the right. This is what I wanted in the end product. So I'm like, I'm happy with it. I think other people will be too.